Konami finally embraced the meme, and they put every main deck monster in a level 2 deck to 2 on the ban list. You know, just fitting. Right, so how does this affect the deck? Individually, I think it's everyone agrees that like hitting one name down from 3 to 2 does next to nothing. In fact, in the example of Swap Rock, it literally almost does nothing because when you do your combo, you only revive Swap Rock once, so you only end up putting 2 Swap Rocks in the grave and reviving Ronin twice. So like this going down from 3 to 2 doesn't even affect your combo, and the fact that you're getting Swap Rock, summoning it from your deck most of the time with Gigantic anyways, means you don't usually even hard draw it. It's like, yeah, this was like a this was a nothing hit. But whoops. The fact is that they've hit now since pre-release SPRIGHT up until now. They've hit, let's count 1, 2, 3, 4 main deck monsters. A Strider is basically a monster from 3 copies to 2 copies, so you're losing about 4 copies of the best monsters in your deck, the ones you actually want to see, which are the sprites, and Swap Rock is just the next best level 2 monster. So it's like you're losing 4 cards from your deck. It's like you're like basically losing an entire 3 of a card and then like another consistency card. So like if you put all 4 hits together, like it does do something to the consistency of the deck, which I guess is what they were going for. It's at the initial when SPRIGHT was released, right? The only hit was Starter 2. Like, yeah, that pretty much did absolutely nothing. But now after like these 4 consecutive hits, it's like, yeah, I feel the consistency a bit. It doesn't change the power level of the deck. My combos are essentially the same. It's just sometimes I brick like 5 to 10% more often. So, no, if that's the goal, if that's how they want to hit decks, so be it. So what did I replace the extra Jet and Swap Rock with? Well, first of all, from my last SPRIGHT variant, I took out the 2 Veilers and I just put in the Gamma package. You know, funnily enough, even more semi-limited cards. I'm just running my deck is like 50% semi-limited cards, right? So you put in 2 Gamma Driver plus the 2 E-Tele. The Gammas I feel is because SPRIGHT is popular now. Like Gamma is actually a good hand trap again. When Tier was like the only deck, I didn't like Gamma because it was just basically like a bad Skullmeister most of the time that you couldn't even use because you couldn't control a monster. But now with SPRIGHT being a very heavily represented deck, Gamma is one of the best hand traps versus SPRIGHT because you can hit their normal summon. They normal summon Swap Rock or normal summon Demo Weaver, or you hit it, and then it puts them on literally having to have SPRIGHT starter or they can't play anymore. And compared to any other hand traps besides Maxi, it's like the most impactful, and it's the only one that can actually potentially end their turn if you do it right and they didn't heavily brick. And to add on to that, I added 2 emergency teleport because again, we're actually like lacking level 2 monsters now. This is summon. Like there's a lot of times, and you'll see in the replays where I just don't actually open playable because they got rid of so many of my level 2 monsters. So E-Tele is like this is like a thing that TCG Malfi SPRIGHT builds have been using. Is just another extender, and this will basically ensure that you will always be able to play the game because no matter what they do to your normal summon, or if they sometimes if they hand trap you your first extra deck monster, having an E-Tele just will let you play through that. Just because Sprint is a balanced card that only requires 1 of its materials to be a level 2, so you can always go into, like, if they hand trap your Gigantic, you can E-Tele out Gamma and just go into Sprint and then full combo that way. Or if you go lead off with Sprint and they hand trap your Sprint, then you E-Tele and then overlay the Gamma and the Sprint into a Gigantic, and you can play like that. Or if they like try to remove your normal summon, like they negate and destroy your Nimble Beaver, or they try to stop your Swap Rock, you can still E-Tele and get a level 2 body, and then you can extend with your SPRIGHT monsters. And if you open cracked, like, I mean, like, you can technically protect your starter with Gamma as well. That will never happen. Like, you will never live that dream. But when it does, you win the game on the spot. And you can. So funny enough, you can, because Gamma is a tuner, and you do run Herald. There's some combos where you can literally like make Herald before you do anything, and then full combo that way under a Herald, and that way when you get your caddy, you search your caddy off Melfi in the forest, you can use your caddy to go into Mary Melfi's for a bounce, and you still have the Herald on the field. Like, and you have it before your opponent can even do anything or special or summon any monster. So that's like, yeah, this is, Nitelli is actually just a really nice card. It's like the next best level 2 monster you could run, I feel. And the rest of that, everything else is standard. Like, you have the standard maxi stuff, the Master Duel stuff, the Ash, the maxi, the Called by the Crossout, and the Infirm, and then 5 Bystials, because Bystials, Baldrake is like the best one since you can use it as an interruption on your opponent's turn by just tributing your own like sprite monsters that you bring back with elf and stuff. And Bystials are, I want to draw Bystials because every Bystial is half of the full combo. You just need one Bystial and any level 2 monster and you go into sprint, and then sprint combos that way. I'm running Gamma Burst and Smashers. Gamma Burst is an OTK. This is the only deck I feel that can OTK and push through Maxi, because this deck doesn't care about Bystials and it can stop your opponent from sending Bystials while you're combing, because, you know, Gigantic is a balanced card, and every other deck has to contend with OTKing through Bystials that they push into Maxi, and Sprite doesn't. So yeah, and Smashers is the other utility Sprite's spell trap. We're not running double cross because Smashers is better going second, and you're never gonna be able to search both. Like, you're only gonna usually search one. You're gonna search starter one time, and then the next you're gonna search Smashers. Like, you only search double cross if you really open crack, and you're probably gonna win that anyways. And I didn't want to run 3 non-starters Sprite spell traps because these are not none of these are actual starters. None of these help you play the game. I didn't want to like brick on too many non-cards, especially with the lower monster count now. And extra deck is really standard: Herald, Mary Melfi's, Centauria, Melfi with the Forest, Onibimaru, double Gigantic, Downer Zeus, IP, double Elf, Sprint, Unicorn, and Avermax. Unicorn is the flex spot. You can cut Unicorn for Codebreaker Virus Horseman if you're as an Alta Baguska, but Baguska is like a lot less common now. Like, people, especially since I'm not running Shifter, people just don't blind make Baguska anymore. And not to mention with the sprite hits and the reduced level 4 extenders they have, they sometimes can't even go into this anyways, so it's like, they can't go into Baguska a lot of times anyways, so this card has not come up for me. That's why I've used Unicorn, and Unicorn is just a nice utility for decks that don't care about Avermax. So yeah, I'll see how this deck performs after the hits to it. So inevitably, you're gonna get a lot of hands that look like this. Because you know, they did hit the monsters to some degree. Opponent starts with Lubellion. You never ash the Lubellion. In every deck that plays Lubellion, they have a better ash target. Such as with Brand and Despia, right? They got the Brand Infusion. Although, looking at our hand with Ash, Infirm, double Bystial, our opponent, we're not playing the game, but neither is our opponent. We're gonna do the Infirm, the Algebra, I don't want to deal with Branded Lost stuff. We're gonna Sarnier, the Idol, sure. And then on the summon of the Sarnier, we're gonna Baldrake away their Rebellion. Now this is a misplay. You should probably, it's minor, but you should probably summon Bystial Druisworm first instead of Baldrake, because Baldrake does nothing by itself. And well, Druisworm, you know, does if they try to get rid of it, especially since this is turn 2 and they have a battle phase. They can run over if they try to challenge Druisworm, at least they'll trade their monster. whereas Baldric doesn't. So yeah, don't do what I did. I just held the Druid Worm in hand because there's nothing of value for me to Bystial anyway, so I might as well just save it, even if I could have prevented the Starving Venom. But yeah, they're gonna run over our Baldric, set a card, and I turn. I could the safe play is to just pass, right? Because they can't kill me, and I have Bystial, Ash plus Maxi, which is probably gonna resolve, and you know, I could probably play it onto the next turn. But because Sprint is in the game and it's a very balanced card, you can normal summon Maxi, special Druid Worm, okay, and go into Sprint, and now you have full combo. Plus I have Gamma Burst and they're dead. Druid Worm gets rid of the Starting Venom, which doesn't even trigger because it doesn't destroy it, it just sends it to the grave. Send the Angler, get 2 Beavers out, and our opponent just concedes because their back row is dead. If they couldn't stop me at that point, then it wasn't doing anything, and we could just Gamma Burst them to death. Okay, so on the flip side is, sometimes you break going first, right? Because you don't draw enough monsters. You can also, when you go second, you also draw a lot of hand traps and anti-engine cards. We have Called by Maxi versus Tearlament. It's pretty good. So even if they go Kikalos, get Soliek, we can just call by their Kikalos when it hits the grave. But we don't even have to worry about that because we draw into an Imperm anyways, because Imperm first draw off the Maxi. We're just a better player than they are. Sorry Joey. And they're gonna step 2. Our turn. Here's where E-Telly comes in. If E-Telly was like just a random level 2 monster or stuff, well actually no, I think if E-Telly was swap, it would have worked too, but the point is, because we had E-Telly in hand and we have 2 brick level 2 monsters, it's still full combo. So we turn into these 2 into Gigantic. I go into Gigantic first because Gigantic, even if it gets negated, still runs over Rhinoheart. I don't really care about Soliek. If they Soliek, they're probably going to send Kikalos, and that's going to get eaten by Called By. And instead they have Imperm, and we have the crossouts for it, because this deck is just all non-engine. And you'll see our opponent doesn't even bother. This happens a lot, but the majority of my games don't enter battle phase. They're like over by the time, either by the time the first person ends, or the player that goes first ends, or if the player that goes first got stopped or bricked, then they will concede before the battle phase. Like half my games do not enter even the battle phase of the second turn. So it's like, yeah, very nice format, Master Duel. Okay, I promise that this is a game where stuff actually happens. You're going to go first, I'm going to starter, then you're going to max C, and we're going to gamble it. Yeah, goodbye. And get out the jet blue, and get out the jet. This is before I realized I could do this, but I totally should have made Herald first. Like you'll see, I just end up overlaying these from Gigantic. I definitely should have made Herald, because I already have the extra level 2 monsters in hand too, and I didn't normal summon. So yeah, misplay number 1, let's get that out of the way. I just have a Herald on board at the end of my combo instead of like a Herald instead of a carrot. Anyway, this is just the standard SPRIGHT combo. You go Gigantic first, then you go into Elf, bring back swap proc, then you swap double frogs into Sprint dumps 2 beavers, the beavers make Valkyrie get the forest. You go into IP Masquerena, and then you set whatever you surge on Jet, and then you get Caddy. So now my opponent has a hand that can break this board. Spoilers, they do not break this board. I'm gonna coach them through how to do it with this hand, because they totally did not approach this board correctly. So they're gonna actually regain, that's fine. They're gonna Super Volley. Wrong. If you have Super Volley versus SPRIGHT, they have a board like this, you enter battle phase. Because you wanna make sure that the IP and the SPRIGHT Elf don't do anything. Because if you enter battle phase and with a carrot on the field, they're probably just gonna let it go because they have a carrot in the game. But yeah, so you see they're gonna Super Volley away. my Carrot and my Sprint. That's wrong, number 2. Do not fuse away Carrot and Sprint. You have to fuse away Caddy and Melfi of the Forest. If you fuse away Melfi and Forest and Caddy, you get rid of the Caddy level 4 quick synchro, and you get rid of the Sprint bounce since they no longer control any Exceed monsters. So that's still 2 interruptions gone, and then this doesn't happen. Because now you did that, Caddy triggers. And then there's Sarnier for some reason. Don't know why. Yeah, so Caddy will still trigger, and then Caddy, and then Melfi of the Forest will block the Garura from attacking. So this thing, that Super Poly, the thing that makes it really good is that the thing that you summon off Super Poly can threaten to attack over my board too after you summon it. But if you don't get rid of Caddy, then then the thing that you summon off the Super Poly can no longer threaten my board and attack over it. So instead you're gonna go into Verte, and then trigger Sarnier and Garua. And here's where leaving the Melfi of the Forest on the field hurts them, because now you can summon Sprint and we'll Bystial away their regain target, because we all also open the Bystial. We open pretty decently, and then Sprint will trigger off the Bystial summon, which means that we can detach off Melfi Spirit and Forest and put back the Verte Anaconda, and now we can use Penny as well, because they didn't Super Polyweight our Caddy, we still get the quick synchro. And we still, after Super Poly and Bystial, we still have like 3 interruptions left. So yeah, basically if you have Super Poly and Bystial, that should break this. That should do a good job breaking the Sprite board. You enter battle phase, Super Poly away Caddy plus the Exceeds, make Garura attack over IP, and then summon the Bystial, and Bystial will attack over either Carrot or Elf, and that breaks the board right there. Don't do what my opponent just did with their hand. And this is gonna be a game showing how bad hand traps are against Sprite. So we lead off with Starter to get blue, and blue will get Impermed, which is not a bad Imperm, because the Jet's at 2 now, so it denies me Jet, which gets me a body and an extra Sprite spell trap. So instead, we're gonna special Carrot, make Gigantic, and get Imperm too. Now you think 2 Imperms should be enough, right? You stop Gigantic and you stop my blue. I don't have a Jet in hand. Well, no, we actually can normal summon literally any throwaway monster, including Ash, go into Sprint, and then Sprint will dump Angler, which gets out the double Beavers. And we can still go Melfi with the Forest to add Caddy in the end phase. Caddy, and especially in the end phase. So even after 2 hand traps, you still have access to a Sprite Sprint Bind if you have control of any 2 monsters, basically. And then this gets you Caddy, which is the quick synchro, and you even get the Sprint Bounce, because you control a Melfi with the Forest, which is an Exceed monster, and Melfi can prevent a block an opponent's monster from attacking, and if they have an Ignition effect, then their effect's going to be negated too. So this is like 2.5 interruptions off of just 2 monsters after getting double Impermed, and we still have 2 cards in hand. Our opponent's on Stun Seed, Rikka Sunavalon. On a normal summon, we're just gonna launch back to Caddy. They're gonna activate Glamour, which is gonna be met with an Ash, and they concede without even. I haven't even used either of my interruptions yet. That on the field, all I used was like a non-engine Ash. So yeah, this is why I switched to Gamma, because traditional hand traps are really terrible against Sprite, and they oftentimes will not actually stop you from playing. In short, do I think the hits really did anything to Sprite? It did a little. Now, like, normal summoning Maxi isn't. You're not gonna open hands with like just a level 2 monster plus both sprites in hand plus a starter. And like, yeah, if you open that, like, no amount of hand traps are gonna stop you. but because Sprint is in the game now, this deck is still capable of playing through hand traps like they literally don't exist still. So yeah, I don't think this deck is hardly any weaker than it was before, especially if you compensate for the lost level 2 monsters with stuff like E-Telly and Gamma, which I think Gamma's a good hand trap again, you know, like I said. So do I think like Sprite is the best deck now? But maybe I'll get into that later. I don't believe Sprite is consensus the best deck. It's definitely in the highest tier at the very least now. Still, because you know there's another deck I want to talk about that they also attempted to hit in the ban list, and I'm not quite sure that they hit that deck hard enough either. So yeah, that's another video for another day.